are only fighting with chainmail and spears and swords and winning because they're fighting peasants. They're fighting people who only have a knife and only have a pitchfork. Pitchfork's not going to, you're going to look at the guy with the pitchfork if you're wearing chainmail and laugh and run up and cut off his head. Because armor made you basically immortal until the gun and until the pike in Europe. One of the things that does destroy it up until there in Europe it was already faded away. But it faded away down to having it be in specific places. Like these guys are all infantrymen. But if we were looking at the cannon people, the cannoneers, the artillery, that's the word I wanted. The artillery, you'd have a plate and some chainmail in parts that bend. They're little just patches. They've got funny names and they're all in French, and I don't know French, but it's just a patch of chainmail that attaches to your armor, for your armpit, for your shoulders, for places that have to bend a lot. They still had chainmail, even when they had full body plate, all Gothic plate. There's underneath that, in all the little nooks and crannies, is chainmail because it's still the most flexible, highest durability armor that is out there. Let's see. Chainmail has actually been kind of go ahead.
Sorry. So was it a technological change that?
It's that reference to the metal getting better, right? So okay. When metal gets better and better, the eventual evolution becomes the sharp version of this, the rapier. Now the same blade, except for sharp, would be put on a 18 to 20 foot pole and called a pike. Same blade, with a sharp point, and you'd only sharpen this much. Sharpen this and the point. All the rest of this, you might make it a little sharp so that it would cut a little bit if it really, grinded along the side of somebody. But this is the part you're killing with. So this is the part that's actually super sharp. And that's true with all swords throughout all of history. Only really the last third of any sword was ever really sharp.
Okay. I'm still a little confused. So are they able to?
So because they're able to make a better piece of metal that's longer, more solid, and more durable, they're able to now make a point thin enough that it pierces between the links and can either ignore them completely because if I'm at the end of a 20-foot pole, I can be able to create enough force and energy to hit you and go right through that piece. So then that's when you have people running around with a single breastplate and backplate, or just single breastplate with a pike, which you can see currently in the Catholic Swiss Guard. They're currently wearing the same Swiss Guard uniforms that they did back when Pope Alexander Sextus, the Borgia, hired a bunch of them, again, because other popes had already done it, and made it their contract permanent. And so because they were mercenaries. The reason why the Swiss were always neutral, Switzerland's neutral, because they were selling their army to go and fight your wars for you, so you didn't fight them because their army was all everywhere else fighting for you. And so you had these guys with these huge pikes, these 20-foot poles attached to this much, 30 to 36 inch, I think this is like a 35-inch blade with a sharp enough point to break. And when you get it at the end of a 20-foot pole, it'll break right through solid plate. It'll break through anything. The only reason you wear a plate, and you wear it, and you end up being, the breastplates end up being these very sharp points, so that you're worried about deflection. That's all you're trying to do is deflect a point. Because if it hits straight on, it's going to go through. There's no way it's not. It's too hardened metal. And you've got a thin piece versus all of this. Because it's translating through all of the force of all of this, the entire distance of it, versus going through just the width of a single breastplate. And you couldn't wear enough armor to be able to defend yourself from a pike. This is why the pikemen owned all of Europe until the gun. And even then, they mixed them. You have a gun and a pike. You shoot a couple times and you move in with the pikes because no matter what you're wearing, a pike will go through it. Horsemen will die to what they call the hedgehog, where they put everybody kind of groups together and puts the pikes out. You see this a little bit in Braveheart, where the big huge cavalry charges and they have those wooden sticks. That's the dumbed down version of pike and hedgehog, where you just have all of those, this like metal, so it's durable, so you can use it over and over and over. It doesn't break, it bends, and he flies off that way when he hits you, because that force combination of you're putting it into the ball of right here on your foot into the ground, and the ground is taking all of that force through a ash or oak or yew pole and 3 feet of steel. So because you can have a more functional chunk of metal, it becomes better and better. Now, before I go on to where it's used now, I'll talk about this piece here. Now, lots of people like to tell me, especially if they try to be fantasy people, that Japanese katanas are amazing. Well, weapons and armor build it together, and they follow basically the Peter principle. As soon as they reach the top of it and don't fail anymore, they stop. They don't get even better afterward. They just stop at what they rise to the level of their incompetence. As soon as they're no longer incompetent, they stop. It's kind of the inverse of the Peter principle. But this is Japanese chainmail. See all these holes? That's because the katana is a cutting weapon. And this is enough to stop a cut. Because that big blade is going to hit, and this is going to be enough to stop that from cutting through you. Put a padding underneath, this will stop that. It's not a point weapon.
So what would you call that? Is that like a 3-in-1 or?
It's a 4-in-1 still, but it's not a European 4-in-1. It's still a 4-in-1 because there's still that center ring that holds 4 90-degree angle ones instead of being roughly the same direction for vertical versus the one horizontal ring. So now you can look at it again thinking, this is what the samurai was wearing underneath a piece of really bad iron plate or bamboo. Usually hardened bamboo.
Are some of these only connected by 2 rings instead of?
That's the very end at the top, and these are actually, these are middle ones, but it's still called 4 because that middle one is connected to 4.
Okay.
Even though this is only connected to 2, this is connected to all. It's actually called something in Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, but that's their armor underneath it, and then they wear silk underneath that, layers of padded silk.
You said the other piece of that is the standard European?
The other piece is still European, yeah, because I couldn't get it to hang properly, so I put a European wedge on top of it, because it wouldn't hang at that size properly. Because it's actually sewn on to the pieces of on your shoulders and on your chest, was sewn on to it.
So,
Oh, this is kind of semantics, but Ottoman is in Sudan, and you said Somalis. It was just from before. They were fighting the Sudanese.
The Sudanese versus the Somalis.
That's
Europe.
obviously not about this, but it's.
You're right. I had the wrong name for the peoples, but it was North Africa.
Yeah.
And that was the big point. Is North Africa was the last one to change over, and they actually had a battle where you had guns versus chainmail. And I agree. I was wrong.
Yeah. It was.
So in essence, 350 BC to 1898 AD.
Yeah.
Chainmail. Okay.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, chainmail within battle, because
Within
obviously it's still used.
And yeah, chainmail, and that's what's bad as is. Chainmail is still incredibly valuable because that sharp bite is points. You look at a sharp tooth, and it's a serrated point. It's a perfect point. That's an arrowhead if there ever was one. Right? This guy's arm. They have another picture right after this one. They show his arm, and he's got just a list of bruises. That's a lot better than losing the arm, I'll tell you.
Now, are they using the Japanese or the European?
Oh, nobody used the Japanese after the European showed up. Even after the European shows up, when Portuguese starts trading with Japan during their closed era, and they start showing them, real chainmail, and they change completely because this works better. This, even though it's heavier, and that was the whole point. 90% of the point of putting this chainmail together like this was because the samurai's goal was speed. This is less metal, which means it's less weight, which means I move faster. You look at some of these guys with their swords, and that's why the handle is so long, so that I can do this and have that 2.5 foot blade, because it's only 2.5 feet long, move quickly. Besides that, remember where they're fighting. They're fighting in Japan. They're only fighting in Japan. They never fight anywhere but Japan and win. They do fight in Korea, but they lose. And the reason why they win is because the terrain works with this kind of armor and that kind of weapon. Because they are exclusive to it, and then as soon as they start seeing better versions of protection, they switch over to it, and they continue to fight each other because they have that desire.
And they just, were they trading with the Portuguese? Or
They traded with the Portuguese and had the Portuguese in there. The last, when the shogunate took complete control over the imperial house, they kicked out a huge portion of all of the other trading partners and all of the Christians, and only left a little small group of Portuguese to trade with, and that's all they'd ever traded with at that. From that point forward, that's about 14-something AD.
I meant specifically with chainmail.
Yeah, what would happen is because it was just part of life, it was onboard ship, it was just on people's gear, they saw it, they bought it, they copied it.
Okay, so a combination of both.
Yes, everybody does that, and everybody kind of does that throughout all of history. Celts kind of started. As far as we know, the Celts are the first ones to do it. Now, it might be have disappeared somewhere else, but Celts are the first one to do it. It spread, and everybody else, as soon as it shows up, that this